always comes first.
We continue now following the decision in the Michael Brown shooting case, a decision of no true bill. Darren Wilson, the officer who shot Michael Brown back in August, was not indicted. You are looking live at the situation in Ferguson, where a St. Louis County police car was set afire. The protesters have been dispersed with tear gas. It is obviously a much different scene than we saw in August, in that we do not see a lot of protesters on the streets right now, and the temperatures are much colder than they were in August.
And we do have a team of experienced investigators. They're prepared to explain the details of this decision. We got a disc from the prosecutor's office with information, evidence that was presented to the grand juries. Over 25 times they met. Lisa Zigman is with us, and she has some information about Darren Wilson's testimony. Lisa?
Yeah, you're going to hear Darren Wilson's testimony as he gave it to the FBI agents for the first time. All right, let's begin. And it starts with an FBI agent, and he says, "How is he assaulting you?" And then Darren Wilson says, "The first time he had struck me somewhere in this area, but it was like a glancing blow because I was able to defend a little bit. After that, I was doing just scrambling, trying to get his arms out of my face and him from grabbing me and everything else. He turned to he's at my vehicle, he turned to his left and handed the first subject. He said, 'Here, take these.'" He was holding several packs of cigarillos, which was just what was stolen from the market, several packs of cigarillos. He said, "Here, hold these." And when he did that, I grabbed his right arm, trying to just control something at that point. As I was holding it, and he came around with his arm extended, fists made, and he went like that straight at my face with a full swing with his left hand. And that's the hand that he had used, the hand off, and then Detective Wilson says, "Correct." The detective says, "The cigarillos." Then Officer Wilson says, "Correct." The detective says, "Okay, did he have anything else in his hand at that point?" Detective Wilson says, "After he hit me the second time?" "Right." "No." "Okay, when you said that, you identified that he came around with a full swing." "Yes." "How was his hand?" "It was closed. It was in a fist." "Okay." Then he says, "He hit me with this part of his hand, just like this, across my cheek." After that, it kind of jarred me back, and I yelled at him numerous times to stop and get back. I believe somewhere in there I put my hand up, trying to just get him away from me, and there I was. I was already trapped and didn't know what he was going to do to me, but I knew it wasn't going to be good. Had me physic or mentally started thinking what to do next. I started off with my mace, couldn't reach it with my right hand. I was using this hand to block and all that. And I know how mace, the detective says, "You were using and then Officer Wilson says, "Yes, my left hand was blocking." Then Detective Wilson says, "Yeah, I was just trying to keep him off me and get him back. I tried to go for my mace. I couldn't reach around my body to grab it, and I know how a mace affects me. So if I used it in that close proximity, I was going to be disabled per se. And I didn't know if it was even going to work on him, if I would be able to get a clear shot or anything else." Then I was thinking, picturing my belt going around it. I don't carry a taser, so that option was gone. And even if I had one with a cartridge on there, it probably wouldn't have hit him anywhere. Next, I go to my aspirator. I couldn't get it on. It sits behind me. I couldn't reach it. And I was in the car and I couldn't expand it. I have a flashlight I carry on my bag. My duty bag was on the passenger seat. I wasn't willing to give up more of my vehicle and my body to him to lean over and grab it and turn away from him. I thought I was already compromised enough. I drew my firearm. I pointed at him. "Stop, I'm going to shoot you," is what I ordered him to get on the ground. He said, "You're too..." We're going to redact that, and we're going to go on and he says, "He grabbed my gun, he twisted it, pointed it at me into my hip and my pelvic area." I'm going to turn this part of the testimony over to my colleague, Investigator Russ Potasek.
Okay, we're going through this information as we're getting it. And if we can scroll to the top of page 10, there's a paragraph in there that is describing the shot, the fatal shot. And this is the moment that Officer Wilson says he gets out of the car. He's telling the FBI, I exited. I followed him in that direction, that would be away from the car. After I said on the radio, shots fired, send more cars. I was yelling at him to stop and get on the ground. Now keep in mind, he has already said he has already shot. These are now more shots to come. He kept running, and then eventually he stopped in this area somewhere. When he stopped, he turned, looked at me, made like a grunting noise, and had the most intense, aggressive face I've seen on a person. When he looked at me, he then did like a hop, you know, like people do to start running, and he started running at me. During his first stride, he took his right hand, put it under his shirt and into his waistband, and I ordered him to stop and get on the ground again. He didn't. I fired multiple shots. After I fired the multiple shots, I paused for a second, yelled at him to get on the ground again. He was still in the same state, still charging hands, still in his waistband. Hadn't slowed down, hands still in his waistband. He gets about 8 to 10 feet away, and he's still coming at me in the same way. I fired more shots. One of those, however, many of them hit him in the head, and he went down right there. When he went down, his hand was still under his right hand, was still under his body, looked like it was still in his waistband. I never touched him, and got on the radio and said, send every car we got and a supervisor.
Okay, that is the first part of the testimony that we are hearing. This was Officer Darren Wilson speaking to an FBI detective, and you really hear in great detail from Officer Wilson's perspective what he said had happened to him. We're going to toss this back to the set right now with Mike and Ann.
Okay, Lisa and Russ, thanks. We'll get back to you, but we now want to go back to a scene in Ferguson right now because we understand there are businesses on fire near the McDonald's. I just had a burger there the other day, and I know you were in there too, Kay, but it looks like we saw the crowd had been dispersed near that burning police car, and now the crowd is now up the street here near the McDonald's on West Florissant. This is not too far from Lucas and Hunt, if you know where this area is, and it looks like some businesses are on fire. A lot of those businesses along that corridor are boarded up because of what happened the last time when we call it Ferguson 1 back in August, shortly after the shooting of Michael Brown.
And we know that the Dollar Tree nearby has been looted. There's been reports of that. Farah Fazal said she saw that. Also, the Walgreens at West Florissant and Hereford. Apparently, a brick was thrown through the window, and that business was also looted. It looks like traffic is still getting through on Florissant here, albeit slowly. And people, again, most of these businesses have been boarded up for weeks. There was one or two that did not board up, but all of them were in business, spray painting on the plywood, please come in, we're open, obviously wanting to continue to make some revenue. But there are also, you have to remember, just within a mile of here, there's about a half-a-mile stretch of homes and residences, lots of neighborhoods. And then as you jut out on all sides of West Florissant, there are additional neighborhoods. So a lot of people at home tonight as this all goes on around them and we watch these buildings burn. We
have it confirmed that St. Louis County police car was set on fire near the 400 block of South Florissant. At first, the back window of the car was shattered. We're also told by the St. Louis County Police Department, they've confirmed that a Molotov cocktail was thrown at police, and that's when officers on the scene deployed pepper spray and smoke in an effort to disperse the unruly crowd, as they put it. Police say that officers were being hit with rocks and bottles on South Florissant. They are making numerous announcements, police say, for people to leave the roadway, and they say those announcements are being ignored. There have also been reports of looting on West Florissant, and we're told by St. Louis County Police a peaceful protester was hit in the face with concrete.
And we do have a statement from both County Executive-elect Steve Stenger saying it is now time to begin the process of mending divided communities. Many voices have been heard on the important issues involved. We must continue to listen, but we must also be prepared to act. Also a statement coming out from the Urban League of Metropolitan St. Louis. They said that they are deeply disappointed in the grand jury's decision not to indict Officer Darren Wilson for his role in the tragic death of Michael Brown.
To ensure the safety of residents and employees, the city of Hazelwood is temporarily closing all non-essential city services. That's all city buildings except for the police and fire stations. They're closed. The city is implementing the emergency plan that has been developed by all municipalities in St. Louis County, and the public will be notified when these services have been restored.
And of course, our team of investigators, a very large team, going through this CD, going through all these documents that we have received from the prosecutor's office. Brendan Keefe right now joining us with new information on Officer Wilson's testimony.
Obviously very dynamic outside. It's also very dynamic in here in the newsroom as we're parsing this information. This is just in. This is actually Darren Wilson's testimony from September 16th to the grand jury itself. So this is his actual grand jury testimony. And the prosecutor asks him right here, this is big, did you carry a taser? The question everyone wants to know. The answer, no. Why not? I normally don't carry a taser, he says. I normally don't carry a taser. Why not? Because we only have a select amount in the police department. Usually there is one taser available in the entire police department, but I usually elect not to carry one. It's not the most comfortable thing. Here's what's important here, folks. We're talking about a less than lethal weapon. We're talking about, instead of a gun that fires bullets and kills people, we're talking about a taser that fires darts that have an electrocution type thing on it, but obviously not fatal. It's just to incapacitate. You're familiar with these? Many police departments, if not most, have officers carrying these in addition to their regular firearms, and they have these as another option. They have a baton, they have a weapon that's a deadly weapon, the gun that was used in this case with 12 shots fired in this case, and then they have a taser. Officer Wilson saying he didn't have a taser because he usually doesn't carry one. There's only one available in the police department, and he didn't feel it was comfortable. This right here, folks, is one of the reasons that Michael Brown was laying dead in the street for 4 hours. We're going to continue to parse this information, get you more as soon as we get it. Back to you.
Brendan, thanks very much. Let's now take a look at Grand and I-44. It looks like traffic is moving. It's hard to tell from that picture, but we are being told by MoDOT that you want to avoid this area. This is Grand and I-44. It looks like there may be some trucks out on the roadway there and maybe setting up a detour, but this MoDOT cam is 44 and Kings Highway, but we're talking about Grand and I-44, and MoDOT says avoid the area. Okay, so here is the shot, the chopper shot that we're looking at. This is where MoDOT says to stay away from, as protesters, they kind of promised that they were going to shut down some roadways, and apparently they're doing it right now on I-44.
And of course, we have had a couple different scenes that we've been monitoring. We have this one at I-44 in Grand. Also, Grand near the Shaw neighborhood. There has been what has been a peaceful protest so far, but a large group gathering there. And then also outside the Ferguson Police Department, where we saw that police cruiser from the St. Louis County Police Department that was burning. Also, we've had buildings on fire along West Florissant and South Florissant. There has been several businesses have been looted as well. Bricks thrown through the windows, and people have poured in. Also, batteries have been thrown at police officers, and we know we've had several reports of shots fired so far this evening since that grand jury announcement less than 2 hours ago. And
so, Kay Quinn, as we look at some of these scenes from Ferguson and now I-44, not far from the Shaw neighborhood, when you left Clayton tonight, it was pretty quiet because the protesters, at least from what we were hearing from some of the protest groups, they were planning on protesting in Clayton. But when you left there, that was not the situation.
No, there were no protesters that I saw. The biggest contingent of people were the media and the police. Several streets are closed around the Justice Center and have been all day long, but really no traffic to speak of. Nobody walking on the streets. It was like a regular, Monday night in the town of Clayton. So I know that there is a planned demonstration in Clayton tomorrow morning. And I know the Clayton School District has already canceled school for tomorrow. So clearly they're anticipating something then, but nothing going on tonight.
But we are looking at the scene now on Grand and I-44. You can see a truck in the roadway, and that truck is being stopped, as well as all the other traffic, as these protesters have made their way. These very possibly are the same protesters we saw in Mike Rush's live shot about an hour ago that were walking in the Shaw neighborhood. We were told that they were planning to shut down some roadways, and I talked to one protester organizer who told me that there might be some highways shut down, and apparently that's what's happening here tonight, Grand and I-44.
And let's get to our Farah Fazal. Farah, I know you were there and saw the Dollar Tree as it was looted. What have you seen so far? She joins us on the phone.
I'm actually live now inside the sorry, I'm not. Okay, I'm getting a lot of feedback. Sorry about that. And in fact, actually, I was just across the street when we saw several people come up to West Florissant, North Florissant, and Hereford, and start going into that little strip mall where they have the dollar store. So some of us crossed that street, and we saw several people looting that dollar store. They broke down the windows. They went inside the dollar store. They just started bringing things out. We also saw them try and hit another little store, and I believe it was a cellular store that was boarded up. They were trying to get the boards down from that store. And in fact, actually, my photographer, John Kelly, and I were eventually able to get out of that area. And before we left, we saw them break into the Walgreens, and they were taking things out of the Walgreens. And as we were headed here to the command center, to the police command center, we saw a salon burning in flames. And we don't quite know, it was a little dark, so it was hard to tell how many people were around it, but we could definitely tell there was smoke in the air, there were flames coming out of the little salon, and in fact there was a lot of activity in that area. We do know that I didn't see a lot of police officers in that area, but I did see officers trying to get there. It was really rather congested, a lot of traffic in that area, so I think they were battling that as well.
Couple pictures, Farah. Thank you, and please be safe. Mike Rush, you were at the scene of 44 and Grand, if you can hear us. I don't see a lot of police. I see some lights behind you, but it seems like definitely more protesters on the highway.
Yeah, and I think it may be deceiving because there are a lot of police officers out here too, and many of them are on the other side of the camera. But let me step out of the way and show you. This is, as you said, 44 in Grand, and the protesters now down the way. I'm not sure how well you can see them, but we're talking about hundreds of protesters who are in both lanes of Interstate 44 blocking traffic. And there are police officers here on this side. You might be able to hear the protesters over there beyond them yelling. And let's go ahead and swing the camera around and take a look at the traffic tie-up that it's caused over here. We've got some buses that are over here. I'm not sure what do you know what kind of buses are those? Police officers in there? Okay, that's Bill Zurheide has a better perspective. Police officers are in these two buses. Oh, I see over here. Can you see that, Bill, on the other side of the police unit? Police officers in riot gear are on the other side, preparing to approach the protesters who are now blocking Interstate 44 in both directions. So a lot of activity. Here they go. They are progressing. You can see them with their shields and in their riot gear. Approaching, they're walking westbound on Interstate 44 at this moment. Eastbound, pardon me.
And Mike, how long did it take for them to assemble and block off this highway? Were you able to tell?
It happened very fast. This group here in Shaw gathered very quickly, as I alluded to earlier in a hit, that they started with a small group of people, and then pretty soon hundreds of people were coming. Young people, look like college-age people, perhaps students from SLU in around the area, just gathering hundreds upon hundreds of them. They were walking back and forth on Grand Avenue between Arsenal and Shaw, it appeared. They made a few cycles of that, but then they kept on going and they passed over 44, and they came around and they got on the interstate so quickly that it was hard to keep up with them. Of course, we were in a vehicle and had the confines of roads being blocked off in order to get here. But yeah, they were a quick moving group of people. But I will say that I have not witnessed any violence tonight. Of course, this here on the interstate is bad news and can lead to injury, but no outward violence as in fighting or things of that nature.
All right, Mike.
So it looks like we're about to have
Keep talking. We'll get back to you in
Mike.
just a second. We'll get back to you in just a second, but we want to show some pictures now. We think this is back in Ferguson. That's a Little Caesars pizza place on fire. And this was the big concern for a lot of these business owners in that area. Many of them boarded up. A couple of people decided not to board up. They said they were going to trust the community. But in this particular case, this building is on fire, and this was the biggest fear because a lot of these business owners live in Ferguson, they live in North County, and their businesses are going up in flames. At least this one, a Little Caesars on fire. As violence and looting does break out in the Ferguson area.
4 Quick Trips voluntarily, hours before the announcement, they shut down their stores because, of course, a Quick Trip burned to the ground pretty much in August, on August 10th. Let's go back to the pictures as well, 44 and Grand, of the protesters shutting down the highway. And it looks like police in riot gear are going to confront them, and we could be seeing possibly something happen here as far as clearing them out. But what's so incredible, Mike, if you're still with us, is that when you look at the pictures of 44, there's a huge semi-truck right in front of all these people gathering, and you think to run out on a highway and try and shut it down. I mean, did that semi-truck just have to slam on its brakes when he saw humans on the highway? I mean, it's just unbelievable. They're right in front of it.
Yeah, you do have to wonder how that initial encounter happened. But we're talking a very large group of people, so perhaps the vehicles had enough warning. I just don't know because it happened so quickly that we weren't here, unfortunately, when it first happened. But it looks like, if you can see, if we can, as much as we can zoom in, it looks like the police are getting closer to this group of people, these group of protesters.
Mike,
300 to 400 in number.
Mike, one of the things that Mayor Slay said earlier in a news conference with Governor Nixon and County Executive Charlie Dooley was that to please bear with us. He said violence will not be tolerated. However, he did say that they would allow peaceful protests, and that means that some roads might be shut down in the coming days, and they were going to allow people to express their civil disobedience. But I don't know for how long and how much leeway they're going to give some of these roads, some of these protesters to shut down these roads, including I-44, where this backup is now occurring. And, you know, some of these truck drivers are trying to just get their load to wherever it's going and probably don't know anything about Ferguson except what they've seen on television.
And again, let's go back to that Little Caesars engulfed in flames. The entire building, the roof is on fire, the front of that building. Already, anybody can tell that's going to be a total loss. Also, there are reports that there is smoke coming out of Sam's Meat Market. They had quite a few issues at that location in August. And we have seen smoke billowing around West Florissant for about the last 30 minutes.
And Kay, I know you had a conversation with someone in one of those local businesses in Ferguson just the other day. The big concern was something like this.
Absolutely. And, you know, the shop owner I talked with owned a beauty salon, a beauty shop where they sell beauty supply items. And she was ready to shut down the minute that there was an announcement, you know, pending in the grand jury decision. That's how fearful she was based on her experience during the Ferguson riots in August. So there was a lot of fear. She was keeping her shop open, but she had very few customers. And, you know, the other heartbreaking thing about this is all of the employees that this affects.
Right.
There was a young woman who worked in this beauty supply shop and said she was out of work for 3 weeks in August. And she said, now Christmas is coming, the holidays are coming. I can't afford to be off work again for another 3 weeks or for an unknown stretch of time. So this affects so many people, and it just breaks my heart for St. Louis and for the people of St. Louis to see these pictures of buildings burning. there's so much pain, and it's very difficult to watch. It's just tough.
And it recalls, if you go back in time and you look at the old YouTube videos of what happened in Los Angeles after the Rodney King verdict, there were scenes like this, and it was very violent, and we're hoping for no violence, but clearly this is not a good situation tonight, and we have pulled some of our reporters out of the dangerous areas. They've gone to safer places so they can continue to report, but we don't want our photographers and reporters hurt tonight. Let's go back to Mike Rush and see what's going on I-44. Mike?
Yeah, Mike, we were able to move just a few feet closer until the police officer told us that this is about as far as we can get. But you might be able to see now, we were able to make it out as we got closer, that if we look down the lane here, it appears that some of the protesters are sitting on the ground, and you can see through the lights of the semis that are stopped because of them. What we also were able to see is on the other side of the interstate, you can see hundreds of people that are on the side that what we believe is the on-ramp to the interstate. Hundreds of people are standing there in addition to the people who are all across the interstate. And of course, traffic is just at a total standstill right now. The police officers have advanced in their riot gear, and they're, you know, we can't get close enough to exactly see. Maybe from a chopper vantage point, I don't know what you guys have access to, but it looks like that they're you know, close to each other at this point, guys.
All right, Mike, we want to continue to watch these unbelievable pictures of this Little Caesars with the fire burning. Looks like the fire department has pulled out one hose. They are attacking it with a single hose right now. I'm sure ladder trucks, more of them are on the way to help combat this fire that is just raging in Ferguson right now. Dennis Jankerson is the chief of the St. Louis City Fire Department, and he has asked people via Twitter tonight. He said, please help fire and EMS responders by keeping your porch lights on. So if you are living in any of these areas and they need to navigate through neighborhoods that may be a little bit dark, keeping those porch lights on, those exterior lights on will help them. We do look like on the left here, there's a public storage, and it is also on fire, a small fire coming out of a single window right now. I'm not sure where that public storage is. We're not sure. We're going to work on getting that location.
I believe it's also on West Florissant. I believe I passed it the other day when I was driving by there. If I'm not mistaken, it is very much in the same area as some of these other fires that are breaking out.
And apparently that was a former media staging area, this public storage, last time around. So perhaps, I don't know if that's why it was targeted, but it was part of the media staging area beforehand.
Well, and you know, people probably in Ferguson who didn't have room in their house for some of their valuables and some of their furniture and whatever could have their valuables and furniture in jeopardy right now because they probably stored it in this public storage situation, and now that clearly is going up in flames. And imagine now, as you just look at the street, if the fire department wanted to try to get through to try to put out this fire, how difficult that would be. And we saw the Little Caesars. We saw one hose, as you said, Ann, on that fire, which is certainly not going to put that fire out. I would imagine that these first responders are going to have a difficult time getting to some of these buildings on fire. And there goes the public storage building.
And there had been some concern that people who were going to cause harm and violence and property destruction were going to do it in a way that they could divide emergency responders, set a fire over here, then set one over here, cause a problem over here, and then split them up into different groups so that they don't have large presence of police force in any one single area. That's been a concern for them all along, and they've been preparing for that. So as we see this public storage just consumed by flames, and we've only been on this shot for a minute, and it looks like that whole building is going to be gone in a few minutes.
One of the things when we were talking with police before the grand jury announcement, they mentioned that they're not going to tolerate violence, they're not going to tolerate property damage, and if that's, by the way, the Little Caesars on the right, the public storage on the left, they weren't going to tolerate it, and if they found anybody looting or trying to set a building on fire, they were going to make a lot of arrests. But, and as you point out, if they're in many different places, it's very difficult to corral that situation. And so now we have buildings on fire on West Florissant. A lot of these people live in that area, and a lot of these.
Someone just threw something on the flames there, a big, large object. I'm not sure what it was, but.
Well, clearly that's only going to make matters worse, and no first responders on scene as far as we can tell.
And one thing, I mean, obviously, if you're either caught starting a fire, that's a felony. You're going to felony charge. You're taken to jail and you're going to stay there. But as far as these state misdemeanor charges, when your refusal to disperse or rioting is just a state misdemeanor, that's it. If you assault a law enforcement officer in the 3rd degree, that's a misdemeanor charge. So in St. Louis County, you're charged with that. You're booked. You're fingerprinted, you're photographed, and then they let you go. You don't even pay a bond. Right back out on the street, and if you could be arrested 5 times in a single night. It doesn't make a bond all of a sudden apply. It doesn't make the charge greater. You could get arrested for rioting 5 times in one night, and you would be back out on the street 5 times in one night. It's because after they bring you and book you, the officer then has to apply for a warrant to the prosecutor's office and wait for the prosecutor's office to get back and apply and send that person that warrant. So it's just how it works, always has. And each department has to bring those arrests to their respective jails. But in St. Louis County, at least, that's how it works at the Justice Center in Clayton.
We're back on the right side of your screen at I-44 and Grand, where protesters have shut down I-44. Let's go to News Channel 5's Elizabeth Matthews, who's on scene. Liz?
My count, it's probably about 30 or so just sitting there. Some of them are linking their arms right now. And then if we go kind of across, so that's one side of the lanes. So we go across the side of the lanes and look at this crowd. Hundreds of people out here. They're very loud. They're chanting. It seems to be peaceful, but we do see at least an SUV and a car, and of course that semi that you guys have been talking about. Those people are stuck on the highway. If you go up kind of the on-ramp onto the highway, there's a ton more people holding signs, also chanting. And then if you come down here, look at this police line. A lot of police officers out here in riot gear. We've got a whole line, probably at least 40 officers standing in a line. And then if you go kind of behind them, there's a group of more officers in riot gear back with some of their police units. So I don't know if we would call this a standoff because the protesters are not approaching. The police officers are also not approaching the protesters. But we have a good 100 feet in between the protesters, it looks like, and the police officers right now. But I mean, by the looks of it, these protesters aren't going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, and Mayor Slay said he was going to give the protesters some leeway and allow them to express, their anger, and some roadways would be shut down. And apparently you can see all those police, but they are not making a move to the protesters. We'll continue to watch these scenes. We do have a statement now from Attorney General Eric Holder, and here's what he said in terms of the grand jury proceeding in the shooting of Michael Brown. He said, while the grand jury proceeding in St. Louis County is concluded, the Justice Department's investigation into the shooting of Michael Brown remains ongoing. Though we have shared information with local prosecutors during the course of our investigation, the federal inquiry has been independent from the local one from the start and remains so now. Even at this mature stage of the investigation, we have avoided prejudging any of the evidence. And although federal civil rights law imposes a high legal bar in these type of cases, we have resisted forming premature conclusions. That is part of the statement tonight from Attorney General Eric Holder on the conclusion of the grand jury proceeding in the shooting of Michael Brown. And Lacy Clay, the congressman from St. Louis, was saying earlier that he has talked to Eric Holder and he is waiting for this Justice Department investigation to conclude, and he wanted Michael Brown's parents to know that this is not over yet.
We do have a new report that the Walgreens on West Florissant now is being looted as well. We understand that the Dollar Tree was being looted earlier. People just breaking the windows with bricks or whatever they can find. And then you can see that 2 hoses now on that Little Caesars Pizza, which has just completely become a shell in a matter of minutes, despite their efforts to fight those flames. Also, we heard from the president at 9 o'clock tonight after this announcement. And he said, there are good people on all sides of this debate. We just need to recognize this is not just an issue for Ferguson, but for America. We've heard a lot of people talk about this as something that could have happened anywhere. and many hoping that we can come out healing on the other side after all of this tonight. More fires you can see on the right part of your screen, that public storage, the flames in 2 places now as traffic continues to go by on Florissant there, West Florissant in Ferguson.
It is a heartbreaking scene and reminiscent of what we saw in August, only perhaps even worse in terms of the damage to property. Again, on the left, the Little Caesars clearly burned to the ground, and now the public storage going up in flames. Let's go back to Mike Rush at Grand and I-44, where there's a standoff apparently between police and protesters. Mike?
Yeah, that is the case right now. You've got a line of police officers here who are on both sides of Interstate 44, east and west, as the protesters are sitting down the road here, sitting on the roadway, and then a large group of people gathering there. You can see the rig that's stuck there in the traffic, and also there's some sort of a car in front of it. A very large police presence here on Grand Avenue as well. They're blocking the bridge, not allowing anybody to go around. Meanwhile, there are a lot of people who are just lining around the side of the interstate watching this moment unfold here. The interstate just completely blocked down with traffic tied up in both directions right now. Mike and Ann, you can see the line of police officers in their riot gear here along 44.
Is there any, can you sense any tension and any idea that they're going to make a move and try to disperse these protesters anytime soon?
Well, that's the thing, is that there's a pretty healthy distance, if you can see, between the line of police officers and where the protesters are congregating. And the police officers have drawn that line, so to speak, and have not moved. So to answer your question, no, I have not seen any agitation between the two groups. The police officers obviously showing their presence here, but not getting aggressive, it does not appear. Now, if we're looking here now on the interstate, this is developing right now in the westbound lane of 44. It's clearing off, and there are a couple of police officers who have managed to get that group moving. Now it looks, Mike and Ann, as if everybody is making their way off of the interstate. So I don't know what's happening from this vantage point as far as what kind of conversations have been going on between the officers or not, but I know that Liz Matthews has a vantage point a little far down from me. Let's see what she can see. Liz?
Yeah, that's right, Rush. We just about 2 minutes ago or so, while you were talking, we all of a sudden heard a lot of clapping and cheering. They had continued to chant, "This is what democracy looks like." Then they all stood up kind of in unison. A few of them started kind of running up and down the lanes of traffic where they were sitting, and then they all got up, got out of those lanes, and then crossed back over the barrier into the other lanes, and now they're walking what appears to be just back on the on-ramp back towards Grand. Also, about 5 minutes ago, I had mentioned that there's a line of police officers in riot gear, then there's another cluster behind them, and then we saw about 40 more guys. And actually, if you can see them on the hill over there, closer to the on-ramp, those guys showed up just about 5 minutes ago or so. So it does appear there's a very large police presence out here, and it looks like, okay, Don, if we want to go down here, this car is about to go through traffic on 44. That SUV had been parked there. To be honest with you, I didn't know if the driver was still in there or not. I bet that driver very relieved to get out of a situation like this, not knowing, just driving down the highway, what you're getting yourself into, and then you're barricaded by hundreds of people. So that SUV is free to go. We've got another, looks like a four-door car that's about to be let go. The barricades are actually being moved by protesters. I see a lot of kind of pieces of trash in the roadway there, but the protesters, it looks like, are moving the barricades. It appears that maybe they are thinking that this was successful. Look at that. Now we have a protester kind of directing traffic, trying to get that car out of the way. There's still a barricade in front of that semi. Oh, and I don't even see that car. So we've got two more cars getting freed from this protesters crossing the street. Protesters leaving the highway now. By the way, police standing very firm, have not moved at all since the protesters got up and left these lanes of traffic. Guys, it appears that 44 will very soon be reopened,
Well,
thanks to the protesters.
Nobody is going to be happier than that truck driver in the white truck who has been sitting there for quite some time, and I'm sure he has some stuff in the back of that truck that he needs to get to a destination, and he just unknowingly came through I-44 and ran into these protesters, and there he goes.
And of course, it's interesting that they never evacuated some of these drivers out of their vehicles as a safety precaution.
Well, on the good side, it appears what happened at I-44 in Grand was a very peaceful protest, civil disobedience, but very peaceful, unlike the situation that we are seeing in Ferguson, where the Little Caesars was burning down, public storage was burning down, other businesses were set on fire, and we understand this is a shot on the left side of your screen of a Walgreens, what appears to be a looting situation just a few minutes ago. You don't see it so much now, but we understand people were running in and then running out with stuff inside this Walgreens. This is also on West Florissant. So all this is happening. This corridor, if you're not familiar with the Ferguson area, if you come off I-70 on Lucas and Hunt and you make a left on West Florissant, there's this short corridor where most of this violence and most of these buildings that are boarded up, that's where they sit. And that's where most of this destruction is taking place.
And at Lucas and Hunt in West Florissant, you just have a huge shopping plaza. You have a Target, you have restaurants, you have multiple different shops, an entire a strip mall, really. And then further down, as you head down West Florissant, all right, we're taking a picture of the public storage. You can barely see it now amid all of that heavy smoke. We don't see the flames as much as we did before. A little bit on the left side there. You can see as we watch that building also burn. But as you go through down West Florissant, then you get into some residents, you get into some more stores that have been boarded up for days in anticipation of all of this. And then another Walgreens in Delwood that was looted the last time around. So the Walgreens kind of bookend both of these areas. Also further down, there's all right, 44 images again, 44 in Grand. Both lanes of this highway shut down by protesters, and it looks like they are leaving. They're going back up the hill towards Grand after hundreds and hundreds of them managed to shut down both lanes, put traffic at a standstill, even at times coordinating, being in one direction and stopping that traffic and then jumping over the median and getting into the other lanes of traffic to make sure they were stopping those. And then now they were chanting, "This is what democracy looks like," and it seems these hundreds of people are dispersing after shutting that down.
We are also hearing now that the FAA has issued a TFR over Ferguson. That means it's a no-fly zone. We're trying to confirm this. Unlike the last time, we're told now that commercial flights are being diverted away from Lambert. Not too many flights into Lambert come this late at night, but we'll try to confirm that and find out if that's the situation. But that's what we're hearing, that the FAA has issued a TFR over Ferguson.
Also, we just got a statement in from the co-chairs of the Ferguson Commission, Reverend Starsky Wilson and Rich McClure, saying a path forward will not be easy and we will struggle, but our commitment is clear and strong. We will listen, focus on the underlying issues, and work toward practical and lasting solutions. Just a part of that statement. Stephanie Diffin joins us now. You have been talking to Wilson supporters. You had a letter earlier from a Wilson supporter. She read a letter Darren Wilson wrote himself before the announcement, pretty much just thanking all of his supporters, and you have more on that for us.
That's right. I sat down with her just right after this announcement was made. She has been in touch, as we've been saying, with Officer Wilson in the past few months. That letter thanked all of his supporters, saying that he wished that he could be thanking him himself, but for the safety of himself and his family, that he wasn't able to do so. Now, that woman also told us that the focus for the thousands of people that have been supporting Wilson through the past few months, now that indictment has now that there has been no indictment, that decision has been released, that now their support is going to turn to all of this law enforcement that is responding to the violence tonight. She spoke with us on the condition that we keep her identity a secret for her safety, and here's what she had to say.
What do you say to the people who are watching tonight who think that Officer Wilson should have been indicted?
I say that those people should have awaited facts instead of going based on no information and trying to indict a man an innocent man of a crime before the facts were revealed. Unfortunately, the truth isn't setting well with some people, and that's sad. That's not justice. Justice is what was served for Darren Wilson. Justice is the truth.
Now, I also just spoke with a representative from the St. Louis Police Wives Association. She told me that, quote, tonight there are mixed emotions. There is some relief that the decision is out, but there is also extreme anxiety over what we are now seeing on TV. The Police Wives Association is now also asking the community to support officers by donating not only food and water to those on the front lines, but also by giving them words of encouragement as they are facing these dangers. And the Police Wives Association, many of their spouses are out there this evening as well.
All right, Stephanie, thank you very much.
All right, let's go back to our breaking news center and check in with Brendan Keefe, who is one of our investigators who has been looking into some of the documents that have been coming in. These are the grand jury documents released by Bob McCullough. Brendan?
Yeah, we're actually looking at all of the testimony, but first a quick clarification. When we were talking about the taser earlier, this is Darren Wilson's testimony, and we pointed out before, did you carry a taser? No, and he says it's not the most comfortable thing, and he usually elects not to carry one. But here's the thing I want to clarify, because reading this very quickly, as we're moving very quickly here, I misread, and that's why we want to clarify. He actually said, usually there is one available, adding the word only in there. In my quick read, I said usually there's only one available. Obviously there was more than one, and he was saying usually there's one available, and he chose not to carry one because they're not the most comfortable. So again, Darren Wilson did not have a taser on him that day because he chose not to carry one, but one was available. This is now testimony from a secret witness. This is witness number 10, and this witness describes the charging at Officer Wilson by Mr. Brown. And you can see after several rounds are fired, he pauses, ceasefire, and then Mr. Brown then continues to charge. I'm going to go to this next page so we can see that. He tried to charge once more, and that's when the police officer opened fire. A detective asking the questions in this case then said, so Brown charged him again and the officer opened fire again? The answer was yes. So this is the testimony that Bob McCullough was describing, where a number of witnesses testified that you had Michael Brown charging at Officer Wilson when he was opening fire. This is an important distinction here, because there was some testimony, of course, that he was surrendering, but there's other testimony that he was charging Officer Wilson. Obviously something that the grand jury considered in making its decision. Guys?
Okay, Brendan, thanks very much. We want to go back to Ferguson. We are looking now on the left side of your screen at an O'Reilly Auto Parts. Earlier we saw what could be possible looting at the Walgreens, and now it appears there is a similar situation at the O'Reilly Auto Parts. This is also on West Florissant. One of the things we're also being told with some of those businesses that are on fire, a Little Caesars, a Domino's, a Sam's Meat Market, that first responders, that the fire department is being asked to hold back, go to a new staging area because shots have been fired in the area. And again, they don't want anybody hurt. They want to put out these fires. There's a look at Public Storage. You can kind of see the flames on the left side of your screen, but the first responders cannot really respond to these fires because shots are being fired in these areas.
And you can see life goes on. There is still traffic on West Florissant, people with the embers flying just above their cars. And then also, as we go back and forth, a lot of pictures, a lot to keep up with here. This is a chopper shot of people as they continue to leave 44 and after blocking off that highway in both directions. And then on the left, of course, back to Ferguson, where you can see in the top left-hand corner of your screen, the flames at the Public Storage. That building is on fire. At least 4 or 5 buildings are on fire right now. Police did issue a statement with us earlier. Outside the Ferguson Police Department, we saw a patrol car was set on fire, broken into, shattered glass. And then we saw smoke and tear gas, and the police have confirmed with us that they did use smoke first and then went to the tear gas. There have been reports of shots fired now in and around that Ferguson area, both on West Florissant and then further down on South Florissant near the Ferguson Police Department, of shots fired over and over again.
All right, let's continue to look at these pictures, but let's go back to Brendan, who is continuing to sift through these documents that were released tonight. Brendan, just bring us up to date.
Yeah, of course, we're reading this right along with you, so pardon as we're trying to parse these words. This is, again, this secret witness number 10, where the detective is questioning about the hands up. We don't know who this is, but it was a witness who testified before the grand jury. The detective says, where are his hands at that point? This is, of course, when he had turned around, okay? He says, I know for sure they weren't above his head. This is a critical piece of testimony because, of course, we'd heard from other witnesses, both on television and as we're looking through the grand jury testimony, that he was surrendering. And so that's basically saying his hands were not up. We also want to look at this page right here because this is more testimony about the charging towards the officer. This is before that second charge that we were describing a minute ago. The charge mode toward the police officer is what the witness was describing. And then the detective said, is this a trot or a jog? And he says, no, it's full out. I'm going, coming, charge, full blown, trying to get you. That's another piece of critical testimony we're looking at that obviously support Officers Wilson's both use of force in this particular case and also his statement that he gave to the grand jury as well, backed up by this secret witness number 10. Guys?
Brendan, thank you. We continue to monitor the fire at the public storage building. That's on the right-hand side of your screen. It continues to grow. Obviously, a lot of people's possessions there, affecting not just the people that own it and work there, but all the people that store things in there as well. At least 4 to 5 buildings. We've had reports of them being on fire, several reports of looting, the Walgreens, as well as the dollar store, the Dollar Tree store. We saw that firsthand, Farah Fazal did, while she was down there on the ground. Also, many schools have gone ahead and canceled classes for tomorrow. You can go to our website, KSTK.com, to get that full list. St. Louis Public, Hazelwood, Ferguson Florissant, Riverview Gardens, just to name a few. Also Parkway, some of the bigger districts have canceled class at least tomorrow, and then most of the schools were off Wednesday, Thursday, Friday anyway for Thanksgiving.
It's a little bit eerie to see the traffic still moving on West Florissant. There are still cars that's driving by, as you say, Ann, with the embers flying over their head from that public storage unit on fire, that entire business. And you can imagine the kind of materials that are in that public storage. It could be, you know, furniture, it could be televisions, it could be, you know, family valuables, something that was locked away either because it didn't fit in the house or perhaps because they needed more space to store it, and it is all going up in flames right now. This is the public storage on West Florissant. A Little Caesars pizza place was also destroyed by fire. Sam's Meat Market on fire, a Domino's on fire as well. Looting at the Walgreens and O'Reilly Auto Parts. It is a very sad night in Ferguson, Missouri tonight.
And as you look at this public storage on fire, I've been at the scenes of storage facilities on fire before and talked with police as they try and fight it, and it is beyond a safety concern. This is not like fighting a regular house fire because there are so many different units and they don't know what's in any of them. Often people store their barbecue pits. There are propane tanks inside of these units. There are cars with gas tanks that people store in these units, and they just have no idea. So often with these fires, you will see subsequent explosions happen. And this is a very large public storage, dozens of units. And again, the St. Louis Fire Department and the municipalities, they've all been told to stand back because shots have been fired. And in a public storage situation, to continue to let that fire burn unattended, it could really lead to some big problems.
All right, let's join Casey Nolan. He is on the phone with us. He is at the scene of the Little Caesars that went up in flames. Casey, what can you tell us?
Well, guys, we're at the intersection of, this is North Florissant, and where Airport Road turns into Hereford, which eventually becomes Chambers. So we're just a little west of West Florissant here on North Florissant. As you said, that Little Caesars, and that's not the only thing that's on fire right now. We see smoke from the Walgreens that is at this same intersection, although that may be under control. I'm not sure because we have law enforcement officials and others standing right at the entrance of that store. It doesn't look like they're too concerned, but clearly it looks like the interior is filled with smoke at the Walgreens there. then back at the Little Caesars, fire crews are now, they've got that, relatively speaking, they've got that under control. Quick note, that's the same Little Caesars where employees survived a tornado in the deep freezer a couple of years ago here in Ferguson. The owner rebuilt after that tornado, and now his store is badly damaged. And then back over here, there's an Aaron's Furniture where they've got metal blocking the front doors. The gates are down and the doors are shut, and then they back two of their delivery trucks up to the front door. When we arrived on the scene, there was smoke coming from the back of one of those trucks, but not in the building as far as we could tell. That smoke has dissipated. There's a Popeyes just next door with the fire alarm or an alarm of some kind is going off nonstop, but we don't see any smoke there. As for what's on the street, just a lot of people kind of checking it all out, just kind of walking up and down the street. A lot of water running down from the Little Caesars, which is just uphill, where the fire department is getting a lot of water on that Little Caesars here.
Casey, give us an idea of the first responders' response. I mean, how many firefighters are out there with all these buildings on fire? We were told that they had to hold back for a while because shots were being fired.
Mike, it doesn't look like nearly, the best I can tell from my vantage point, we've got one truck. This is clearly not the kind of response you would normally see for a fire of this magnitude. A gentleman just walked up to us and pointed out that this Aaron's Furniture, there is more smoke coming from this building. It's hard to tell if it's coming from in the building or the truck. I can tell you one of those delivery trucks that was used to protect the front entrance, the windows are smashed out of it, or one of the windows is smashed out of it. But no, there's, you know, the scene of Walgreens filled with smoke, and there's one police car and another one driving away. Clearly, this is not a normal response.
And what about protesters in the area? What are you just seeing bystanders, or are you actually seeing the protesters are in the area and that's how the fires are being set? I mean, who's setting these fires?
No idea, Mike. I can tell you the only folks who are being vocal in anywhere are the folks who drive by in their cars. The people on the streets are just kind of watching, taking it all in. I've seen a couple of people with gas masks and a couple of people with air filters, but no one seems to be doing anything.
We're seeing some people on the ground. Our banner was kind of covering up, but did it look like people were throwing things into the public
There were about
storage
2 or
fire?
3 people that looked like they were throwing things into the fire. And Chief Belmar and the leaders of the Unified Command have made it very clear that it is their priority first to protect people and then property. In a perfect world, they want to protect both. But if their resources are consumed by protecting people, then property may have to suffer. So they have been upfront about that all along. That may be one of the reasons why we're seeing some of the situations we're seeing and the lack of response. That may be the reason. But you can, Casey, you said people that are driving by, business as usual for some of these people, just driving home from work or whatever they're doing to get back to their Ferguson homes. And what are they saying? You said that they are responding to the protesters outside of their cars.
No, I would say it's more like it's turned into more of a cruising environment, and this is no one driving here. From what I can gather, is here for business as usual. This is we got a few people, yelling things out the window, perhaps in support of some form of unrest, you might say.
So these are all people who are just curious and want to see what's going on tonight.
That's the best I can tell. Yeah,
okay.
We're getting a little closer to the Little Caesars now. We're walking northbound on North Florissant. I'm with Tom Stasiak.
And Casey, we just got word that the FAA has temporarily shut down incoming flights into Lambert. It's just affecting a handful of flights. Granted, it's late at night, but they have shut down the airspace as far as incoming flights. We have had a lot of reports in the past of media being attacked and threatened. Have you experienced or seen any of that tonight?
No, not at this time. I mean, I'm walking along the street with the individual who's 4 paces ahead of me with his face covered up, and no one seems to care that we're here.
Okay.
All right.